The Mini 5-door hatch has opened up ownership of the classic Mini model to more people than ever before, and this revised version has sharpened up its act. It's not inexpensive, and this F55 series design is still pretty compact, but specified correctly, it's a difficult car not to like.
Take a standard Mini, add a dash of length and practicality, and you'd have a strong seller. You'd have a car like this, the Mini 5-door hatch. It was launched in 2014 and then much improved in mid-2018, and it's that revised version that we're going to look at here. This F55 series model wasn't the first 5-door modern Mini. That was the Countryman SUV R60 series design launched back in 2010, but perhaps it should have been. For years prior to this F55 model's original introduction, Mini had been losing customers to other brands, people who'd loved life in the company's little 3-door hatch but had outgrown it. Now, in its second generation, the Countryman has helped a little in keeping those folk loyal, but this 5-door hatch version has helped a lot. It is, after all, a rather purer and more affordable expression of mininess than the Countryman, or indeed the estate-style Clubber model. Here, most of the stylish frugality and fun, chuckable, cheeky demeanour of the iconic Mini 3-door hatch is carried over intact, but packaged up in a car that can meet the occasional need to transport up to 3 people in the back and deal with the modest proceeds of a family supermarket shop. This revised 5-door hatch model isn't fundamentally very much different from the original, but it does feature quite a few significant improvements. Mechanically, the refettled engine range sees a detuned version of the Cooper model's 1.5-litre 3-cylinder unit make it into the base Mini 1 variant, plus the 4-cylinder 2-litre power plant used in the top Cooper S model that we've been trying here has been significantly overhauled in pursuit of greater efficiency. The optional Steptronic auto gearbox, that's now a dual clutch unit with 7 speeds. Oh, and diesel power has been ditched to suit the market's prevailing mood. Just as important are the aesthetic, technology and customization updates. The piercingly bright headlights now use full LED technology, as do the trendy new Union Jack style tail lamps. There's a whole fresh level of connectivity via upgraded Mini connected services, and the brand's introduced a Mini Yours Customized program that sets a fresh industry standard for the level to which buyers can personalize their cars. So quite a lot's changed, but thankfully at the same time, nothing that's really important is different. Here's a Mini that'll still charm you with its dinky looks and its go-kart handling. And it's still a go-to choice if you want a style-conscious urban runabout with much of the technology of a larger car. You wanted more Mini? Well, you've certainly got it now. So, what's it like? Well, slide behind the wheel and at first glance you're reminded that for all its cheeky marketing, the Mini hatch is quite a lot more mature these days. The dashboard's smart, the materials used are classy, and you aren't faced with too many obvious attention-seeking gimmicks. Flip the neat starter switch in the middle of that row of toggle controls at the bottom of the centre stack, and first impressions are good. Here we've got a Cooper S with 2-litre 4-cylinder power. Most buyers will be choosing the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder unit that's now fitted to both the Mini 1 and the Mini Cooper variants. Both 3 and 4-cylinder power plants have a bit of an urgent rasp to them. That fits nicely with the enthusiastic character of this car. So let's see what else it has to offer. Can a bigger Mini really feel like a proper Mini should? Fun, frisky and up for anything? Well, the brand's Countryman SUV and Clubber models have always tried hard in this regard, but for many of these cars have always been a little too heavy and perhaps even a little too sophisticated to quite respond in the way that a classic Mini should. The idea with this 5-door Mini hatch is to offer buyers extra doors and enhanced practicality without any dynamic downsides over the ordinary 3-door hatch variant, or none that are particularly obvious anyway. If the stretched wheelbase of this car has done anything to dent the eagerness of the taut Mini chassis, then it's difficult to feel it. which is important given that a large part of this car's appeal stands or falls on its involving driving experience. Yes, people love the styling and the image, but one of these just has to put a smile on your face when you drive it. If the overall feeling that you're going to get is of just another Super Mini wearing a cute suit, then you'd have to question this car's place in the overall scheme of things. Now, we'd worried about that before driving this car. The Mini marketing people continually talk about go-kart handling, but that seems to be at odds with this 5-door hatches, longer wheelbase and extra weight. On top of that, until relatively recently, you had front-driven Minis and rear-driven BMWs, so Minis were different and technically unique. But since Munich awoke to the benefits of the front-driven layout, that's no longer true. So, under the skin, this car shares the same so-called UKL platform and basically the same engines as virtually all of BMW's smaller volume models. Does that mean a loss of unique mininess though? Well, the answer is no, not really. Driving this car still delivers the same infectious naughtiness that loyal Mini followers love so much. There's still the darty steering and the quick-fire throttle response that you'd expect. And yes, on the pokier versions or on variants unwisely fitted with overlarge wheels, there is still the same unyieldingly bumpy ride over poor surfaces. Now we'll get to that in a minute, but first you might be wanting to know about the mechanical updates made to this facelifted F55 series model. Well, at first glance, very little appears to have changed across the turbo-only lineup, but Mini is eager to assure us that in fact all the engines feature subtle modifications. This has meant efficiency-orientated tweaks for the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder units used in the mainstream models, but a more fundamental overhaul of the 2-litre 4-cylinder power plant that features in a 192 HP state of tune in this top Coupe S hot hatch variant. And that gets high pressure injectors, a redesigned exhaust system and a fresh turbocharger. Arguably even more significant than all that is the introduction of a new 7-speed Steptronic double clutch auto gearbox option that replaces the previous lower tech torque converter 6-speeder. On this Coupe S, you can specify that Steptronic transmission paired up with steering wheel paddle shifters, and if you're quick with them, 62 miles an hour from rest can be dispatched in just 6.8 seconds. That's a tenth faster than on the manual model, and that's on the way to a maximum of 146 miles an hour. Only if you're one of those people who likes to rev up to the red line and wring all of the performance out of your hot hatch might you be disappointed. The 4-cylinder 2-litre power plant, like the Coupe's lesser 3-cylinder unit, has pretty much delivered all its punch by around 5,500 RPM. So instead, for really rapid progress, you have to learn to lean on the engine's slug of turbocharged torque. On a Coupe S, this performance is accompanied by noise enhancement through the stereo speakers. Now, normally we prefer our aural excitement to come more naturally, either from the exhaust or from under the bonnet, but in this case, that more artificial setup actually works quite well. Now, we just mentioned the mid-range Coupe model's lesser 3-cylinder unit. It's tuned to put out 136 horsepower, and like most commentators, we reckon that that little engine represents the sweet spot in the lineup. It's the same power plant that assists the electric motor in BMW's exotic i8 sports car, and in a Mini Cooper, as in an i8, it punches well above its weight, giving a level of performance that isn't really too far off that of this Coupe S. In an ordinary Cooper, 62 from rest can be dispatched in just 8.3 seconds on the way to 129 miles an hour, and we think that's probably quite as fast as most people will really want to go in this car. That ordinary Cooper variant is quick and eager to be revved, but not so powerful that it hurls you up to unnecessary or unmanageable speeds. The same 1.5-litre 3-cylinder engine also features in detuned 102 HP form in the only other model available to Mini 5-door hatch buyers, the entry-level Mini 1, replacing the previous 1.2-litre unit. In Mini 1, 62 from rest takes 10.6 seconds on the way to 119 miles an hour. Mini hatch customers are no longer offered any black pump fueled options, diesel power having been dumped to suit the prevailing customer mood in the small car segment. Right, so back to that issue of ride quality we mentioned earlier. Go for a sport trim model like this one and your Mini dealer will give you the no-cost option of specifying your car with stiffer sport suspension. Now we would think twice here, particularly given that a sport spec model will come with larger 17-inch wheels. In our view, the very last thing this Mini needs in any of its guises is a set of unyielding springs. This F55 series model's sophisticated UKL platform allows for a suspension design that actually gives entry-level variants on standard 15-inch wheels a very reasonable ride. But if you specify the larger rims that most customers tend to want, you can quickly end up with a car that, on really poor bumpy surfaces, delivers all the suspensional compliance of a Halford's trolley jack. Fortunately, you can do something about that by specifying your car and ticking the box for the variable damper control setup. This enables you to switch the ride to suit the mood that you're in and the road you're on, and it works through the also optional Mini driving mode setup. Now this setup, which is now activated via a toggle switch on the centre stack rather than as previously by the rather hidden selector at the base of the gear stick, enables you to choose settings that tweak throttle, steering and, on the automatic model's gear change response, between mid and green settings for efficient, comfort orientated motoring, but you'll want the third mode option, sport, for when the road opens up and the red mist begins to fall. Something appropriately echoed by a red glow around the central display, and less subtly by a little picture of a go-kart and the phrase maximum go-kart feel. Quite. A configure sport option on the centre screen allows you to select or deselect a sport response from either the drivetrain or the chassis if you want to tailor things specifically. If all that's of interest, then you'll want to make sure that you have a Mini 5-door hatch featuring the brand's Performance Control torque vectoring system. Now this is standard on this Cooper S, but you'll only get it on the ordinary Cooper if you specify your car with sport trim. Performance Control electronically duplicates the kind of functionality that you'd normally get from a heavier, more complicated mechanical locking differential, working through the turns to counter both understeer and wheel spin by lightly micro-braking whichever front wheel is threatening to lose grip. As a result, the car is kept planted through the tightest corner and you're just fired from bend to bend. What else? Well, in a car like this, the manual gearbox should be satisfying to use and snickety quick. Disappointingly, this one isn't. It has a notchy feel and a longish throw. Still, at least the clutch is light, which does help in town. And on this Cooper S, there's clever rev matching software that even instructs the engine to blip the throttle on down changes. So it sounds as if you've mastered the perfect heel and toe technique, and your friends are going to think that you're the next Lewis Hamilton. Of course, you won't always want to be slinging this Mini about. In fact, typical buyers of the base Mini 1 derivative probably won't have any hooligan tendencies at all. These people will love this car's nippy, agile, urban manoeuvrability, and they'll also like the way that this F55 series model is so surprisingly capable as a long-distance journeying companion, provided that they've taken on board the suspension spec caveats that we mentioned earlier. Impressive refinement helps enormously here. The engines are quiet as well as smooth, and noise from both wind and tyres is also well kept in check. So you could own this car, appreciate all these things and never need anything more from it. But what a pity that would be. The Mini marque never wastes an opportunity to remind us of its tradition for providing go-kart handling. This car delivers that, and thank goodness for it. Now, we couldn't have had a 5-door version of previous Mini hatch 3-door models. No, not even the modern BMW engineered ones. They simply weren't big enough. All that changed in 2013 when the third generation Bavarian developed F56 series version arrived, complete with significant increases in length, width and height. Now that paved the way for this F55 series 5-door hatch design a year later. Now while it's inevitably not quite as pert as the 3-door car, the extra 72mm grafted into this bigger hatch model's wheelbase does in compensation give the shape some extra roadside presence. In fact, most of the extra length has gone into the rear overhang, with the car 161mm longer than the 3-door hatch. Does it all work aesthetically? Well, you'll be the judge of that. What we will say is that if you like the look of the 3-door hatch version, then the changes made here are subtle enough to probably keep you loyal to this, its bigger stablemate. Now, Mini's first 5-door model, the Countryman, was quite a big step away from what people expected the brand to deliver. This car has proved to be much easier for the brand's faithful to follow. Visually, it certainly retains quite a bit of this maker's trademark get up and go, with the wide track, the short overhangs and a window graphic that tapers to the rear, all contributing towards quite a dynamic wedgy 3D shape, which is further aided by the striking sill line that runs between the front and rear wheel arches. Other familiar Mini touches include the continuous band of chrome at the base of the glasshouse and the blacked out pillars that create the so-called floating roof. Also the familiar side scuttle, side indicator surrounds and the black periphery around the bottom edge of the bodywork. All of that's present and correct. Move to the front and there are more established elements of brand DNA, the clamshell bonnet, the upright windscreen and yes, the round headlamps, although quite a lot of work has gone into enhancing these with this revised F55 Series 5-door hatch model. The improved lights may look much the same as before, but the full LED technology behind them is very different, particularly if you order the optional matrix adaptive beams that automatically extinguish parts of the lamp that might dazzle other road users. Either way, a new LED daytime running light ring surrounds the beam and illuminates as a turn signal when needed. Other changes include a revised range of alloy wheel designs that vary in size depending on the trim level you choose, 15 or 16 inch rims for the base classic models and 17 inches if you pay the extra for plusher, sport or exclusive spec. Now this is sport spec, which gets you a John Cooper Works aerodynamic body kit. You can also add a little trimming panel by this side indicator that can be customised with 3D printing with a particular pattern or even your name. The Mini Yours customization program really does mean exactly that. As before, providing you avoid the base Mini 1 model, the dinky power-packed profile comes with the no-cost option of a body-coloured, a white or as in this case, a black roof, all options featuring matching mirror housings. It's at the rear, though, that this facelifted F55 model is most easily recognisable as the improved post-2018 era design. These new Union flag-style LED tail lamps are the reason why. Now, you might quite understandably feel that you don't need reminding where the Mini concept originally hails from, in which case you might be a bit disappointed to hear that you have to have these. Get over that though and put this little flourish down to just another touch of quirky character and you'll bond with it just fine. Now it's here at the rear where it's easiest to identify whether the Mini that you're looking at uses 3 or 4 cylinder power. The smaller 1.5 litre engine features a single left side exhaust. The larger 4-cylinder unit in this Cooper S variant that we're testing here comes with this more potent low diffuser incorporating a couple of central tailpipes. Another feature of sport trim is this John Cooper Works rear spoiler. Time to take a seat at the wheel, where you're reminded that cabin quality in modern Mini models really is now the equal of any mainstream BMW that you might care to name. Surrounded by all this, it's easy to forget quite how flimsy a lot of the fittings on the early BMW Minis were. Remember the first R50 design's indicator stalk that activated with all the subtlety of a snapping biro, or the Mark II R56 model's feeble little plastic joystick that was used to enter sat-nav instructions. Everything feels a good deal more substantial in this third generation car, a good deal more grown up. The supportive seats are a good example of this, with a wide adjustment range and a decently lengthy base that makes them surprisingly comfortable on long journeys. There's a proper rotary controller for the lights and a whole series of lovely touches. Now, some are things you can add in as options. An engraved Mini Yours piano black fascia panel, for example, which illuminates with a Union Jack motif, but others feature as standard right across the range, like the way that the centre stack mounted start-stop tab features a heartbeat illumination which pulses before the engine started. or the optional LED illuminated ring around the centre dash monitor that progressively lights up the perimeter of the screen as you switch driving modes, engage the engine stop-start, cope with parking, or count down to your next sat-nav turn-off. Now, if you haven't yet tried a post-2013 era third generation F56 or F55 series mini model, you might be surprised to find that this huge central display no longer functions as a speedo these days. Less characterfully, but more practically, that's been relocated to a pod in front of the steering wheel where it's flanked with a crescent moon rev counter and a fuel gauge. All of this has freed up this central area for much more infotainical trickery. The screen is now 6.5 inches across the range as standard, but it's been upgraded here to 8.8 inches in size as part of the Navigation Plus pack, which includes all the latest mini connected media features. Cleverly, the system is also compatible with Amazon's voice assistant, Alexa. Touchscreen functionality features only on this bigger monitor. Otherwise, both the colour layouts are marshalled by this classy, effective iDrive style controller down by the thankfully conventional handbrake. What else? Well, the ergonomics aren't bad, although the driving position is sported slightly by pedals that are offset to the right of the wheel, which forces you to sit at a slight angle. All-round visibility, that's pretty good. That's aided by the slim window pillars. Cabin storage is reasonable too, although the door pockets are small and there's no overhead sunglasses compartment. On the plus side though, you do get a reasonable glove box, twin cup holders just ahead of the gear stick here, and a small cubby just ahead of that, which is clearly intended for your phone, since USB points and a 12-volt port sit just above that. The Navigation Plus pack gives you this central armrest with its incorporated phone charging mat. You won't want to have that down too often though, because it gets in the way of both the gear stick and the infotainment system control dial. Time to take a look in the back, and it might be helpful to give you some size perspective before we do that. This 5-door hatch model is about averagely sized by the standards of premium class 5-door super minis. A directly comparable Audi A1 Sportback would be 9mm shorter. A rival Volkswagen Polo would be a full 71mm longer. Now, if you'd started off figuring this as a possible alternative to a larger Focus class hatch, which is reasonable given this Mini's premium pricing, well, you can forget that. A Focus is 396mm longer, and cars of that are more directly targeted by Mini's bigger Clubman model. Nearly half of the extra length you get with this F55 series 5-door hatch variant has gone into providing extra rear seat space, although to some extent the issue lies in getting to it. These extra rear doors are really pretty small, so squeezing in and out can be tricky. Inside, all that extra wheelbase length creates a cabin that's obviously a huge improvement on the cramped quarters provided by the 3-door model. Mini says that this 5-door variant delivers 10mm more headroom and 61mm more shoulder width, enough to make it possible to fit in the 3 belts back here that can't be accommodated by that smaller car. The brand claims you get 30mm more rear legroom than you would in the 3-door model, and that's helped by these deeply sculpted seat backs, but legroom will remain pretty cramped if there's an adult of more than average height in front of you. It is at this point that you're reminded that this is a 5-door Super Mini, not a Focus class family hatch. View this car from that smaller perspective and you'll bond with it just fine. Well, it's actually less claustrophobic back here than we'd expected it might be. These deep side windows help considerably with that issue. Despite that, though, you wouldn't want to be stuck here for a long journey, especially not in the middle, where the unfortunate centre occupant has to sit with legs astride this substantial transmission tunnel, and that's made even more prominent by this integrated cup holder. The seat back does recline through a couple of positions, which is welcome, and there are separate cup holders in each of the doors. And there are seat back pockets too. Let's finish by taking a look in the boot. Now this is 278 litres in size. That's 67 litres more than you get in a three-door variant, and it's about the same as you get in the rival Audi A1 Sportback, although it is a significant 77 litres smaller than the space that's on offer in a comparable Volkswagen Polo. This cargo area is a good square shape, but it's accessed via this rather high loading lip. Now that is less of an issue if you've paid extra for the adjustable height boot floor, which can be set to lie flush with the entrance of the boot and can be neatly clipped forward against the rear seat with magnetic fasteners when not in use. There's nothing beneath the cargo area base, and Mini has never bothered to offer the option of a spare wheel to sit down there. So in the event of a puncture, if you don't want to be stuck by the side of the road with a Mini mobility kit, you'll have to specify one of the optional wheels that can be had with run-flat tyres. There are no bag hooks, but there is a 12-volt socket, and you do get the usual tie-down points. Now we've struggled to fit in some awkwardly shaped items like pushchairs, but in such instances that seat backrest adjustability we mentioned earlier has helped quite a lot. Being able to make the backrest a touch more vertical in angle can make all the difference in getting bulky stuff in, but that can only help you so far, and in many situations you're going to have to push forward the 60-40 split rear bench. With everything flat, a surprisingly large 941 litre load capacity area reveals itself. That's 210 litres more than you'll get in the three-door model. This five-door mini hatch body style attracts a £700 model-for-model premium over the equivalent three-door model. Prices are pitched in the £17,000 to £25,000 bracket. These days, it's an entirely petrol-powered lineup, with most buyers likely to opt for the 1.5-litre three-cylinder unit offered in 102 HP form in the base Mini 1 and in 136 HP guise in the mid-range Cooper model. There is a premium of just under £1,500 to move from one to the other, which gives the five-door hatch Cooper model that many will want a starting price of around £18,500. The 192 HP Cooper S version we're trying here uses a 2-litre four-cylinder power plant and that'll need a starting budget of around £22,000 in this five-door form. Trim levels start with base classic spec, which is what you have to have if you want a Mini 1. If you prefer a Cooper or this Cooper S, then classic is your starting point in the range. From there, an extra payment of £2,600 with any derivative gets you either dynamic sport spec, which is what we have here, or the more luxury orientated exclusive trim. Whatever model and trim level you select, you'll be offered the option of finding £1,400 more for Steptronic 7-speed automatic transmission if you want that. Onto the value proposition that this kind of pricing represents. Now, there's no real point in comparing these figures to volume versions of mainstream Super Minis. This is intentionally targeted as a premium brand model. Now, if you doubt that, take a look inside the cabin and then compare the quality and technology that you'll find there to that of, say, an ordinary small Vauxhall or Seat or Citroën. A more natural competitor is Audi's A1 Sportback, which in volume, 114 horsepower, 30 TFSI guys, costs pretty much the same as the equivalent mid-range Cooper version of this Mini. But with the Audi, get a smaller boot, less equipment, and less involving driving dynamics too. So what else might a potential Mini five-door hatch customer be considering at the premium end of this segment? An upper spec Volkswagen Polo perhaps? Well, a Mini Cooper customer might be tempted by a Polo in equivalent R-Line 1-litre TSI 115 PS spec, but one of those would cost around £1,000 more and would give you less performance. A Ford Fiesta ST Line 1-litre T EcoBoost 140 PS version would deliver the performance and sportiness that a Cooper customer would want, but it costs around £500 more, and obviously it isn't very premium in terms of either its finish or its badge work. The same, of course, is true of just about any other comparable upper spec volume Super Mini that you can think of. If you're looking at a Cooper S model like this one, priced from just under £22,000, then you'll be paying around £1,500 more than the kind of money that would get you a comparable Polo GTI, and around £500 more than you'd need to get a 5-door Ford Fiesta ST. Something like a sporty S-line trimmed version of that Audi A1 Sportback 30 TFSI model we just mentioned would cost much the same as a base Cooper S2, but obviously that would offer you a great deal less power. So that's talked you through all the potential alternatives. Bottom line, there's nothing quite like this Mini. But if this car grabs your interest, you've probably already decided that for yourself. In which case, if you're serious about buying one, you're going to want to know just how generous the brand is being this time around with the standard spec. So let's take a look at that now. Now, if you watched other sections of this film or you've been to a dealer, you might already know that for this revised third generation model range, Mini has standardized two features that were previously optional: full LED headlights and the larger 6.5-inch centre dash colour infotainment screen. Union flag style LED rear lamps are now standardized too. Otherwise, the kit list is pretty much as it was, which means that on both the 3-cylinder variants, by which we mean the base Mini 1 and the Mini Cooper, you get a spec package that even in entry-level classic trim gives you air conditioning, powered heated door mirrors, LED front fog lamps, white indicators, a chrome-trimmed exhaust pipe and an alarm. Inside, you get Bluetooth connectivity, a keyless starting system, a trip computer, a 3-spoke leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel. You also get auto headlamps and wipers, an interior light pack and a 4-speaker DAB stereo. Also standard is the Mini Excitement Pack, which adds in LED interior mood lighting, illuminated door handles and Mini logo projection on the ground at night when you open the front door. If you're sticking with classic trim but you're avoiding a Mini 1 model, you get a bit more. The Cooper variant also gets 15-inch alloy wheels and the option of a contrast colour for the roof and the door mirror caps too. To that tally, this 4-cylinder 2-litre Cooper S hot hatch adds larger 16-inch wheels, twin exhausts and performance control torque vectoring for extra traction through the turns. Inside, the S variant features sports seats, a sports leather steering wheel and an LED ring around the centre dash infotainment screen. Most buyers of this car, though, are going to want to find the extra for either the sport or the exclusive trim levels. As mentioned earlier, sport is what we have here, and that comes with a much more dynamic look, courtesy of the John Cooper Works aerodynamic body kit, a John Cooper Works rear spoiler, and 17-inch John Cooper Works black alloy wheels. Plus, there's a no-cost option of firmer sport suspension if you want that. Inside, in a sport-trimmed mini hatch, the sport seats, the sport leather steering wheel and the door sill finishes all get the John Cooper Works treatment. Plus, there's an anthracite headlining and cruise control with a brake function. For a Cooper Sport variant, you also get the Cooper S version's performance control torque vectoring system. That's the one that we were just talking about. If your priorities lie more with luxury than with sportiness, though, you'll prefer the exclusive trim level option. That's distinguished from the outside by special exclusive silver-featured alloy wheels and an exterior chrome line. Inside, the brand has included some of the choicest offerings from its Mini Yours range of personalised interior fitments. That equipment line furnishes the full leather sports seats, the leather steering wheel and the interior style package. Now there's also a chrome line interior pack, and as with sport trim, this spec level gets cruise control with a brake function. From there on in, it's down to the level of restraint you can bring to bear on the tempting options list, which Mini has, thankfully, recently simplified considerably following the introduction of the classic, sport and exclusive trim levels. Now, your starting point here will probably be one of the comfort packs. The standard one delivers a few basics that you really wouldn't want to be without in this car. Stuff like the adjustable height boot floor, rear parking sensors, floor mats, and it also throws in front seat heating, automatic control for the air conditioning, passenger seat height adjustment and a front centre armrest. If you want a little more, then the embellished Comfort Plus pack gives you all of those features, plus a rear view camera, power folding mirrors, front parking sensors, and a parking assistant which will automatically steer you into spaces. So what about the other key things you need to look at adding in? Well, first, we'd point you towards the Mini driving mode system, which allows you to select mid, sport and green settings for the steering, the throttle, and on the Steptronic models, the auto gear shift, depending on how you want to drive. Now, if you're going to go for that package, then we'd suggest that it's probably incomplete without the addition of variable damper control for a few £100 more, so that those various settings can also tweak the ride quality. Another key option lies with a key new optional feature introduced as part of this midterm model upgrade, the Matrix adaptive headlamps, which are able to automatically adjust their brightness using a matrix of different light elements to cater for specific road conditions. For example, the lamps can add extra illumination to the side of the road in rural or urban areas, while the high beam lights can function with greater intensity at highway speeds without dazzling other road users. Now, infotainment will possibly be next on your priority list. The standard 6.5-inch centre dash circular screen can be embellished with a navigation pack. Now, that will give you sat-nav, an upgraded mini visual boost radio, extra elements of mini connected connectivity, and Apple CarPlay smartphone mirroring, although not Android Auto. Or if you've already specified one of the comfort packs, you could go further, as is the case with our test car, and opt for the Navigation Plus pack, which gives you all of those navigation pack features, plus a larger 8.8-inch touchscreen display, a centre armrest with a wireless phone charger, real-time traffic information, various performance-orientated vehicle apps, including sports instruments, a concierge service to answer journeying inquiries, and an even fuller suite of mini connected drive services, including online search and weather information. The Navigation Plus pack also includes remote services, which allows you to interact with your Mini via a smartphone app. Now, this can tell you things like fuel level, it'll let you remotely lock and unlock the doors, and it'll show you your current location of the car and, if necessary, direct you to it. As we just mentioned, both the navigation packs include the Mini Connected package, and that's something that we need to tell you more about because it's very clever. It's built around an integrated 4G SIM card and a now even cleverer Mini Connected app that you can download onto your smartphone. Now, once you've synced your system with the handset, your car's connected setup will be able to access all your destinations from your calendar, save their addresses into the navigation system, advise you when it's time to leave for a journey, and share your arrival time with people that you nominate. And there's all the usual remote services functionality too, so you'll be able to remotely view fuel levels, lock or unlock the doors, and find the car if you've gone and forgotten where you parked it. Mini Connected is the way that the brand wants you to access online-based services such as web radio and the use of social networks like Facebook or Twitter, Foursquare and Glimpse. And it's also the way that you'll be receiving RSS news feeds and entertainment features such as Deezer or Napster or TuneIn. Our favourite Mini Connected feature, though, is Find Mate. Now, this option consists of tags with a Bluetooth tracking function that can be attached to frequently used objects and travel items like bags, cases and keyrings. Now, if you ever lose one of these tagged items, its position can not only be displayed on the car's dashboard screen, but also on your handset via that Mini Connected smartphone app. What else? Well, don't listen to the optional Harman Kardon hi-fi system if you're someone easily parted from your money. And if you want to go even further, you can splash out on things like a panoramic glass roof, roof rails, windscreen heating, comfort access keyless entry, and rear privacy glass. Maybe you'll also want the head-up display, which is found on a little panel that rises at the base of the windscreen. And we'd want the Trackstar vehicle tracker too in case of theft. On to aesthetics. Now, you're certainly going to want to get the look of your Mini just right, both inside and out. Now, the sport trim level we mentioned earlier with its John Cooper Works body kit is one route into doing this, but there are lots of others allowing you to pick, choose and individualise to your heart's content. Let's start with the paintwork. Now, unless you want your car finished in pepper white, you're going to need to pay Mini for an extra cost colour and probably one of the various metallic shades. We've got Starlight Blue here. You have to make choices for the roof too. All Cooper and Cooper S Mini hatch models offer the option of a black, white or body coloured roof with matching mirror caps, and that's a no-cost option. You might also want to look at bonnet stripes in black or white and a piano black coloured exterior trimming package too. Wheels are a big thing to get right. There are various 15, 16 and 17-inch rim options available with classic trim, while sport and exclusive spec buyers get 17 and 18-inch rim options. Now, the 18-inch wheels look great, but if you go for those, make sure you also specify variable damper control so you have a chance to soften the ride over poorer surfaces. Some of the rim designs available can be specified with run-flat tyres, and we'd certainly favour these, given that there's no possibility of having a spare wheel with this car, even one of the Space Saver variety. Inside, there are even more options. With the classic and sport models, you can add a sport leather steering wheel and a piano black interior trim pack. This also comes included as part of an option for sport spec bars that we've been trying here, the glowing red colour line pack, which adds red trimming around the front of the cabin. But of course, you can go a lot further than that. With this revised model, Mini has championed an approach that aims to take buyer individualisation to a whole fresh level. Now, through the Mini Yours Customised program, you can customise the door sills, the puddle lights, the side scuttles by the side indicators with 3D printing and laser engraving. The dash panel above the glove box can be personalised in a way too, with a graphic that constantly illuminates the Union flag in a range of different colours as you drive. For all of these elements, you can choose from a range of styles available through the Mini Yours customised online shop, or if you want, you can have your own bespoke pattern done or even feature your name, although we're not absolutely sure how all of that would work when you come to sell the car on. The next buyer is really unlikely to want a Mini called Patricia with a puddle light showing a picture of your family crest. On to safety and the level of possible provision that seems an awful long way from model founder Alec Isigonis' original thoughts on the subject back in the 60s. When he was asked about the crash worthiness of the Mini, he said, "I make my cars with such good brakes and such good steering that if people get into a crash, it's their own fault." Well, thankfully, things have progressed a bit in the safety department since then, although perhaps not quite far enough in this case. Even back in 2014, when the Euro NCAP safety test was less stringent, this F55 series Mini didn't manage the usual 5-star showing, and it certainly wouldn't achieve that if it was subjected to today's upgraded test, because autonomous braking isn't standard fit. The brand unfortunately missed the opportunity to incorporate that feature into this facelift model, but what it laudably has standardised is its eCall intelligent emergency calling system. Now, in the event of an accident, this setup automatically detects vehicle location and accident severity before contacting a call centre to initiate fast and effective assistance. Now, that could be a lifesaver. As for other standard safety kit, well, camera-driven features are notable by their absence, so you're limited instead to more conventional stuff. There are anti-lock brakes, of course, with electronic brake force distribution to make them more effective, and also cornering brake control to help you through the turns. So you're always primed for a swift stop. There's tyre pressure monitoring, fading brake support and a useful brake drying function that will imperceptibly dab the discs in wet weather to keep them dry. There's also the usual stability control system and a DTC, dynamic traction control setup, that in poor conditions allows a bit of controlled slip at the drive wheels, so moving away on loose sand or deep snow can be a bit smoother. If all that's not enough to avoid an accident, then ISOFIX child seat fastenings, a pedestrian-friendly bonnet and twin front, side and curtain airbags will all be welcome features. If you want to go further, then you can tick the box for the optional driving assistant pack, which offers a range of camera-driven features. Now, when you're travelling at speeds between 6 and 37 miles an hour, pedestrian warning and approach control warning, both with a light city braking function, warn drivers and automatically brake if a potential collision is detected. At higher speeds, approach control warning also registers potential collisions with vehicles ahead and will precondition the brakes for faster brake responses and shorter stopping distances. Now, if an accident can't be avoided, the braking functions do help to reduce the impact speed. The camera technology also recognises and reports speed limits and no overtaking zones. And there's active cruise control, which automatically keeps you a safe distance behind the car in front on the highway. It's all a long way from the days of good Sir Alec. Efficiency analysis can be confusing, and it certainly is here. Mini tells us that great lengths have been gone to in improving all the twin-power turbo engines on offer in this improved F55 Series 5-door Mini hatch, but the figures they deliver aren't actually quite as good as the ones we were given when we first tested this car back in 2014. There is a reason for all that, of course, or at least Mini says there is. The new, more accurate WLTP, World Harmonised Light Vehicle Test Procedure, that's now used for compilation of official fuel and CO2 stats, but currently converted back to NEDC2 spec, has a reductive effect on efficiency readings in its efforts towards day-to-day realism. Mini, though, has been able to reduce much of the impact of that thanks to the engineering updates that we just referenced. These include changes to the oil supply, the engine electronics, the intake air ducting, the cooling setup and to the exhaust system. Even the engine cover is now made from lighter CFRP, carbon fibre reinforced plastic fashioned from recycled material generated during production of BMW's I-Series range of electric vehicles. But that hasn't helped the largest engine in the range, the 2-litre 4-cylinder unit used in the top Cooper S model. This is actually 35 kilos heavier than it was before, thanks to a more comprehensive program of refettling. Despite this, Mini insists that changes to the high-pressure injectors, redesigned exhaust system and a fresh turbocharger have together helped fuel economy to be improved by around 7%. Statistically, that leaves the Cooper S 5-door hatch recording up to 42.8 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 129 grams per kilometre of CO2. You'll improve those readings by about 10% though if you choose the optional auto gearbox. But what about the 1.5-litre 3-cylinder petrol power plant that most Mini hatch customers choose? Well, as you might have heard us say elsewhere in this film, this is now fitted to the base Mini 1 model as well as to the Cooper variant, and either way the official readings are much the same, up to 46.3 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 119 grams per kilometre of CO2. To give you some class perspective, a rival 114 horsepower Audi A1 Sportback 30 TFSI would give you about 58.9 mpg and up to 108 grams per kilometre, although that model doesn't offer Cooper levels of performance. Even so, it's clear that Mini still has a way to go here to reach the top class standard. Partly this is due to weight. A Mini 5-door hatch, which is 60 kilos heavier than the 3-door hatch model, is 160 kilos heavier than that Audi A1, and that's a combined weight of a couple of parents and a small child. There are now no diesel models on offer, so if you want to do better with your running costs in a Mini hatch, your only other option will be to talk to your dealer about the full electric battery-powered model that the brand's developed. That's the Mini E. Now, this borrows the drivetrain from the BMW i3, and it should be able to take you around 180 miles on a single charge. But let's concentrate on the more conventional fossil fuel models that are our focus here. As you'd expect, if you know anything about the Mini brand, there are a whole host of what the company calls minimalism technologies that help this car achieve its class-leading efficiency. Now, these include the basics that these days you might expect, so slippery aerodynamics, brake energy regeneration, the reduction of engine and transmission internal friction losses, and ancillary engine systems that operate only when they're called upon rather than constantly pumping away in the background. Plus, of course, there's a stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. The automatic models can also work with the Mini navigation system to take account of your selected route and to better control your gear shifts to suit. To further build on that approach, the driver can play his or her part better with a couple of operational systems that should help to further drive your running costs down. First up is the Mini driving mode system that we're trying here. It operates via this toggle switch at the base of the center stack and allows you to switch from a default mid mode to self-explanatory sport or green settings. Green mode modifies throttle and transmission response, and it tweaks the standard gear shift point display. It also includes a so-called coasting function, where at high cruising speeds the drivetrain is temporarily decoupled for extra frugality when you come off the accelerator. The onboard computer includes two readouts which demonstrate the effect of the fuel savings that all of this creates. One that shows the extra mileage available and another that shows the reduced energy consumption. There's a road-based minimalism screen that shows driving efficiency in real time with different wheel colours. And finally, there's the minimalism analyzer that you can add as part of the Mini connected package. Now that's there to score your driving and guide you towards more economic progress. This grades you with star ratings out of 5 in 3 areas: changing gear, acceleration and anticipation. Now this setup might initially seem to be a bit of a gimmick, but owners who have used it reckon on fuel economy improvements of between 4 and 8 miles per gallon. What else? Well, residual values are bound to be strong. They always have been. You can expect your Mini hatch to be worth around half its value at the 3-year 60,000 mile point. That's assuming that you've spec'd your car properly and you've included the optional comfort and navigation packs that used buyers will be looking for. If, though, you've gone overboard with options, particularly the aesthetic and personalisable ones, then don't expect to get much of that money back at resale time. As expected, there is the normal 3-year unlimited mileage warranty with the usual BMW-style variable service indicators. Beyond that, there's an optional extended Mini insured warranty that can cover you for up to 100,000 miles and can be specified to apply to particular components like the clutch, the engine or the gearbox. And on that subject, almost all Mini buyers opt for the no-brainer TLC package, which for around £350 gives you comprehensive servicing cover for 5 years or 50,000 miles, whichever comes first. This also includes a Mini MOT Protect assurance guarantee that states that in the unlikely event your car fails its first, second or third MOT test, Mini will cover the cost of repair or replacement of an array of selected parts. Once you've hit 3 years of ownership, you can also buy a further Mini TLC XL package, which for £275 gives you the same kind of cover for a further 3 years or 30,000 miles. And finally, we should mention insurance groups, which are the same regardless of whether you choose this car in 3 or 5-door form. You're talking Group 13E for the Mini 1, Group 19E for the Mini Cooper, and Group 28E for the Cooper S. Mini itself offers fully comprehensive insurance, but you might find that your own broker can improve on the premiums that your dealer's going to offer you. This 5-door Mini hatch offers Super Mini buyers shopping at the premium end of this segment something a bit different, more fun, more customisation, more technology, more Mini. You'll either like the whole adventure or you won't, as is always the case with this Anglo-Teutonic brand. The extra length of this 5-door variant's done nothing to dilute the classic Mini joie de vivre, which is why this car will appeal so much to the young at heart. At the same time, the enhanced media connectivity and the camera-driven safety kit of this revised model will also appeal to the head, as will cabin quality that really does make this car feel like a cut-sized BMW, with all the quality and technology that you'd find in a design from that parent company. Mini hopes that all of that might tempt buyers from the next segment up who don't really need much rear seat space to get one of these instead. You could see that happening. Of course, not everyone is Mini-minded. Some don't like the way the looks have evolved. Others still think it isn't big enough. And this car can certainly be expensive once you've added in a few essential options. But these are issues that the creators of this car never set out to address. The improvements that they have made, though, are resoundingly successful. Although the endearing raw edges that characterised older Minis may now be distant memories, added maturity certainly brings many compensations. Looking back, it's extraordinary that it took the Mini brand so long to bring us this car. After all, over 70% of all sales in the small hatchback segment are of 5-door models. But many will feel that this F55 series model was worth the wait. For Mini faithful folk who need 5 doors but who don't really want an estate or an SUV, nothing else will be quite the same.